A Florida pastor and his son have been arrested for using money from the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, to try to purchase a $3.7 million mansion at Disney World Resort. Now, the pastor, whose name is Evan Edwards, and his son, Joshua Edwards, run a nonprofit charity called Aslan International Ministry. Now, the charity claimed its mission was to communicate Christian love in doctrine and service to the poor, which, by the way, sounds lovely. I mean, if it were actually true, I'd be super supportive, and I wish we had more religious organizations that wanted to preach that instead of a lot of the hate that we've been hearing from conservatives. But nonetheless, Joshua Edwards filed for a PPP loan of $6 million back in April of 2020, claiming that his charity had employed almost 500 people. And had a payroll of about $2.7 million. However, adjacent tenants to his listed business address told federal agents they had not observed anyone coming in or out of Aslan's office to include deliveries or seen other signs that the office was actually being occupied. And unfortunately, that did not stop the bank from giving him not only the requested amount, the bank went above and beyond. Remember, he asked for 6 million. The bank handed out $8.5 million. So I want to understand what happened there, like why the discrepancy. And remember, one of the issues that we had, or at least I had, I don't want to speak for everybody, with the way the stimulus was rolled out was that the government allowed these major banks to make the decision into who is or is not approved for the loans, right? And what we saw was that the banks were deciding to give massive loans to their buddies. So I think the bank in this case should be investigated as well. Like, did the bank have a relationship with this guy and his son? But I want to continue. The Edwards quickly overplayed their hand, by the way. 2 months after receiving the loan, the family sought to use a whopping $868,250 for a down payment on a $3.7 million home in an upscale neighborhood in Orlando, and that's according to federal records. When authorities recognized that the money was used to attempt to buy the 4,700 square foot home was actually from PPP relief, the funds were thankfully seized. And this is something that was very common. I mean, there are so many cases of fraud, and luckily we're hearing about them. We're hearing about the investigations. We're hearing about them getting caught, as they should, because at the end of the day, that was money that was meant to, I mean, the way it was advertised by our politicians, it was meant to help protect small businesses that had to shut down over no fault of their own. And we saw the lopsided rollout of those funds that tended to benefit either fraudsters or people who are incredibly wealthy and privileged.
I think there's two interesting points here, but first I'm gonna make a random one. So they named their organization Aslan. I was like, oh, that's funny, that means lion in Turkish. And then as I read the rest of the article, it turns out they had just come back from living in Turkey. Okay, they're not Turkish, but they did live there. And there's the nice, I don't know, it's not the irony, I guess it's appropriate. They might have meant lion the animal, but they were lion indeed. They got caught on it, and so it was appropriately named. Look, the point that Anna made about the banks is true. They mainly favored their top customers because speed was really important in PPP, and they would push forward their top clients first, which meant that those were also the folks getting more money. And remember, the banks got a little piece of the action for everything that they pushed through, so they had an incentive to push more through to help their top clients than their friends, and to get more money out the door. And they did do it with incredible speed in that situation, so fraud was going to be inevitable. But I want to give credit to the government agencies that are going out and catching these guys. I'm actually a little bit surprised by that, and great work here in catching these clowns. And then the second point is, watch out for the moralizers. You see anyone moralizing about the evils of other people, and I can guarantee you right now, they have a much, much higher percentage of being immoral themselves.
Yeah. honestly, I kind of respect these people. You have to, you have to be truly, truly stupid to not just get all this PPP money, which, to be honest, if they hadn't done what they did, they probably wouldn't have, gotten in trouble for it, honestly. But only 2 months later, to use that money to make a down payment on a house in Disney World, it's just so bold. It's so transparently fraudulent. And it really, I really do have like a little bit of respect for them for just trying it. But I mean, I think it's sort of indicative of the fact that they really thought they were going to be able to get away with it. They really, and a lot of people who did, do PPP scams did get away with it. Maybe they, were a little less bold in their tactics, but it is a huge issue that all these corporations were able to capitalize on a stimulus while the working class got $1,200, and the Congress was debating so much about whether or not we were giving too much money to poor people during this pandemic. Meanwhile, these Christian scammers were able to just rake in $8 million so that they could, keep open a business that didn't exist and make a down payment on their Disney dream house.
So, just to buttress your point about how bold they were. So when the authorities started investigating it, they found quite a few discrepancies, to say the least. So of course they went to talk to tenants in that area to see if there was actually any activity happening in the building that the two men claimed that they were operating out of. But then the other thing that happened was federal authorities decided to go talk to the individual who was listed as their accountant on the PPP loan. And it turns out that accountant has not worked with them since 2017.
Oh my God.
But better yet, okay, the guy has dementia. So they specifically chose a former accountant who they very likely knew has dementia. So if push comes to shove and the authorities actually investigate it, well, maybe the authorities wouldn't take what this guy has to say at face value, and maybe they would doubt him because he has this condition. I mean, I don't know. I'm speculating there. I don't know for sure, of course, but yeah, it's just too convenient that they listed a former accountant who now has dementia. Come on.
Yeah. Well, my favorite part is, remember, PPP was to make sure that you keep your employees during the pandemic, because a lot of companies were rightfully panicking, thinking we're gonna have all these costs, but we're not gonna have the revenue. I don't know if we can keep our employees. These guys had almost no employees. So they're like 8.4 million to keep which employees? The guy that retired 5 years ago and has dementia? Okay, although to be fair, back then it was only 3 years ago that he had retired. Look, the good news is that criminals are generally dumb, and so it's a little bit easier to catch them. Rayvon is totally right. If they'd played it smart and they just waited a little bit, bought the cars later, or bought the house through someone else, a family member, etc., they probably would have gotten away with $8.4 million. God knows how many folks did get away with that throughout the country. But to the point of why were they so brazen? I shared this theory before, but I think that a lot of people in the country, especially the right wing, now thinks that there are no laws, that you can be a white collar criminal and get away with anything. And they're like, look, Trump got away with everything. Like almost all of the criminals, unless you steal from the rich, you're gonna get away with it. It seemed to be the message that was going out. That's why, and look at our reaction. Anytime the government actually tracks down a bad guy and puts him away, we're like, oh my God, holy cow, that's great. Credit to the government, right? Because we're so shocked by it.
Like a story we did recently about the financial influencers. They got caught in these pump and dump schemes, and it wasn't just the DOJ, but also the SEC launched an investigation and indicted those individuals. And I was like, look at the DOJ, all right. So you guys apparently do prosecute some people. Nice, how about some people in power too? That'd be nice.
Yeah. I agree though, Cenk, these people, they've gotten really bold, and I I love the new trope of conservatives live streaming their crimes. They love to go do something illegal and go on Facebook Live to do it. Like, especially after January 6th, there was all of those people who were there who live streamed themselves, were like posting their location on Facebook. They're like, look at me pooping on Nancy Pelosi's desk, stealing a podium. And then when they were being held accountable, they're like, that wasn't me. I don't know. Yeah. That's my Facebook account. That's me in the video, but I don't know. I didn't expect to be here. I didn't think anyone was gonna hold me accountable.
Well, they thought their daddy would protect them, but their daddy abandoned them.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.